My name is Diane Southard. Welcome to Understanding Your DNA Ethnicity Results, which still, after 20 years, is by far the most popular question I get. They are confusing and there's a lot to learn and understand. So let's jump in. First of all, let's talk a little bit about your bucket. So your bucket is representing, your paint bucket is representing your DNA, right? The amount of DNA that you got from your family. Each of our paint buckets is unique because each of us has received a different dripping amount of DNA from each of our ancestors. So your unique paint color represents your unique you. And you see it in the DNA ethnicity results by looking at these percentages, for example. And all the percentages are different, and you're different than your siblings, right? Because your siblings only share half of their DNA with you. So you're going to get different results than each of your siblings. It's going to be different than your parents because you only have half of your DNA from your parents. So your ethnic bucket is filled in a different way than anyone else in the entire world, actually. So that's really the message, the number one message you should take home from your ethnicity results. If nothing else, you need to really recognize that you are you. You're the only one of you. You're completely unique in the whole world. And so it's important to just capture that one big principle before we get too lost in the weeds of why our DNA ethnicity results look the way they do. But speaking of why, there are really three factors that affect our DNA ethnicity results. And when I'm talking about these factors, I'm referring to the DNA ethnicity results we get from our 5 genetic genealogy companies. And I've listed them up there at the top. There are other companies offering this kind of service in a way, but I just want to be clear, I'm talking about how it works at our top 5 companies. So the factors are reference populations, what I call fancy math, and timing. Now of those, I think reference populations is probably the easiest to understand. After all, if you're from, say, Pakistan, but the company you test with doesn't have a reference population from Pakistan, they haven't tested anyone from there, they aren't going to be able to tell you that you're from there. Right? And so when you get your results back, they're going to tell you you're from somewhere else. So it's so important to understand the ethnicity results in the context of what your company is actually able to tell you. And all of our companies are doing this differently. So of our top companies, these are the total reference populations that they offer. Now, as of this recording, MyHeritage is about to release a really big update to their ethnicity, and so I know their number is going to be much larger by the time you watch this. But this gives you an idea of how many reference populations each of our companies is using. And you can see there's a lot of differences. So you can find how many reference populations your company is using by simply going to Google and Google, for example, family tree DNA reference populations, and you'll find that information right there for you. I also have a page on my website, and we'll provide a link to that for you in the syllabus, or here a link underneath the video. So you can access that page, and I've got it all there for you if you don't want to go Google yourself. Okay, so reference populations, a huge factor. Next, we have fancy math. And honestly, I call it fancy math because I don't really understand it all myself. Honestly, it is complicated mathematics. But this is what I do understand. I do understand a good analogy. So we're going to compare the math that's used in our ethnicity predictions to the weather. And we can do that because the weather and our ethnicity predictions actually work kind of the same way. They're both what we call non-deterministic systems, or if you want a less fancy word, they are unpredictable systems versus predictable systems. So, for example, if you want to calculate a certain aspect of the economy or the average of something, there's a formula for that, and you put in the numbers and you're going to get the same answer every time. Other predictable things in my life are my dog, right? He's so predictable. If you open that drawer that holds his leash, he is ready to go for a walk. Okay, also I've got a picture of my uncle here. My uncle is extremely predictable. Every time we would go to see him, it was tickle monster time. Like, you could count on it, right? These are predictable things in our lives. as opposed to unpredictable things like the weather, right? They can try to predict the weather, but we all know that it might not turn out that way. Also in the list of unpredictable things are 12-year-old girls. Trust me, if you don't have one, they are absolutely unpredictable in their moods. So it's important that we know that our ethnicity is part of this unpredictable system, but they're still using it to predict stuff. So how does this work, right? Well, think about the weather, okay? This is my favorite weather app, and it tells me that on Saturday, for example, there's a 39% chance of rain. That's overall for the whole day. But it also provides me these little windows where it says, hey, it's more likely to be raining around this time versus these other times, right? How do they do that? How do they determine when it's going to rain? Well, they use a ton of factors like barometric pressure, temperature, humidity, global oceanic trends, right? It's a lot that goes into predicting our weather. Well, the same is true for our ethnicity. Here's the key principle. The output from these kinds of systems from run to run is hardly ever the same. If you run the algorithm with the exact same input 40 times in a row, you will get different answers. That's how the weather is predicted, and that's also how your ethnicity is predicted. This is an image from Ancestry DNA's white paper. If you're super sciencey and interested, go read the whole thing. It's fascinating. But essentially, all this is telling you is that they ran your ethnicity results, your DNA, through their ethnicity predictor 1,000 times. And you can see over there on the right, they got different answers every single time. And then they have to take that data and provide some kind of prediction. To give you an even clearer picture, let's talk a little bit about hurricane predictions. So I live in South Florida, so this is a very real situation for us. And this is what happened when my husband and I were planning our fabulous 20th anniversary trip to Europe. Obviously, we were super excited about going, and we had made tons of plans. But on August 30th, we were supposed to leave for Europe, and you can see this hurricane is coming right literally at my house. And we were kind of stuck. We didn't know what to do. And so I spent a lot of time looking at these, they call them spaghetti charts, right? All of these spaghetti charts represent a different run through a different algorithm, taking all of these metrics, the barometric pressure, the temperature, all those things that I talked about, and they're shoving them through their own little algorithm to guess where Hurricane Dorian is going to go. And look at them. Basically, every single one was like, Diane, it's hitting your house. Okay, so we decided we would put up our hurricane shutters. Here's my helpers. Yes, they are actually very helpful. They didn't just sit around and look at their phones all the time. But we had to be prepared because it looked like it was going to come and hit our house while we were gone, and my mom, bless her heart, was at home with my kids. So here's a question. Why does this happen? Why does this system get so many different answers? And the answer, guys, is fancy math, honestly, but really it's just there are so many factors in determining things like your ethnicity. There are some ways you can get a little bit of insight at a few companies on how they're doing this or on kind of the back end. And really it comes down to this range idea. This is from Ancestry DNA. If you click on one of your categories, you can access this range. And it's so important that you look at it. So you see there it says your ethnicity estimate is 13% German, but when they ran it through the algorithm, sometimes I had 0% German, and sometimes I had 37% German. So this range gives you that broad view of what's going on here. It's saying, hey, you can maybe be 0% German or maybe 37% because that's the numbers we pulled at least one time. So go take a look at those ranges. They may help you see a little bit better what's going on kind of behind the scenes. All right, that was the toughest one, guys. That was fancy math. Next, we have timing. Timing is very important. And to help us understand timing, I want to go through my mango theory. Now, you're probably all over the world, and so I'm just wondering, can you buy a mango at your local store right now? Now, if you're in very developed countries, I'm guessing that you can. but did your country grow that mango? And again, I don't know where you are. I'm in the United States. Let's say I'm in Virginia. And if I'm in Virginia in the United States and I go to the grocery store, I certainly did not grow that mango in Virginia. Okay? So where did it come from? Well, this is a global market, right? So I did some research, and a lot of America's mangoes get imported from Brazil. So 2 weeks ago, that mango was in Brazil. It was on a tree in Brazil. And I think at that point in time, all of us would say, that is a Brazilian mango. Like, there's no doubt, right? We would say that mango from Brazil. Got it. Okay. Well, then someone picks the mango off the tree and they put it on a boat. And now that boat is out at sea 8 days ago. So whose mango is it then? And you might say, oh, well, it's still a Brazilian mango. Just because it's at sea, it doesn't mean it's not a Brazilian mango. Okay, we'll take that. Well, then it lands in the United States, likely in Texas, and then it gets on a truck and it starts to drive to Virginia. So then whose mango is it? Is it a Texas mango for that time that it's in Texas and then belonging to each state as it crosses the United States? It's hard to say, right? Is it still a Brazilian mango? So this is the problem, right? It gets all the way to the grocery store in Virginia, and maybe we'll even find it on the shelf. How do we know where it's from? And that's why timing is so important. We're looking at your DNA over a long span of time. And so telling you where you're from, honestly, it depends a lot on when you're asking, not just where you're asking, right? So timing is a huge, huge factor. So those are the top things I think you need to know about your ethnicity results: your reference populations, your fancy math, and the timing. But really, it's just exciting that we can even learn this at all from our DNA. Don't you think that we can ask our DNA, where am I from? And it can tell us. And if it's not telling you very well right now, it could be that in just a little while, our company will have a big update and they'll be able to tell you soon where you're from. So again, I'm Diane Southard. Thank you for joining me. I'm so glad you're interested in learning more about your DNA. And if you want to know even more, you're welcome to join me at another one of my Rootstech classes. You can also join us here in the exhibit hall. We have a booth, and you're welcome to come and ask us all of your DNA questions about ethnicity or anything else. And you can always connect with us on social media. We are everywhere, and we're always trying to provide some nice tips and techniques and just videos for you to use. We also have a newsletter. So feel free to reach out to us and ask us your questions or post your success stories. We do love to hear about all the success that you're having. And again, thank you for joining me.